Hello, I'm the Angry Spork, taking issue with Image Comics' Masters of the Universe Volume 2. After getting a weakened sorceress to her favorite lazy boy pyramid, He-Man finds out there's been some overlap with an evil parallel reality, and it's only going to get worse as the previously comatose man-at-arms they thought they had saved from death is from the bad place. Now he's on the loose in a world he could potentially plunge into chaos. But other than that, things are going good. How's by you? The cover features a heavily shadowed Skeletor glaring down at the reader, with red or orange lightning striking him in the background. I dig the foreboding, menacing vibe this gives off. After the standard recap, we begin with the man at alternate universe arms zooming by on a jet sled, narrating to himself about getting to King He-Man and blaming Keldor for things being so weird, like the controls on his vehicle being all backwards. And it's humming instead of obnoxiously singing song lyrics off key. What the F? Though if the controls are backwards to what he's used to, then I guess he just kept hitting buttons until the thing finally took off. Anywho, he's struck by a laser blast, then crash lands to a skidding stop right in front of Skeletor and some of his crew on a splash page.
Isn't this an unwelcome surprise? Wait, you're not the DoorDash guy, right? I didn't shoot down my chicken parm with garlic knots again, did I?
Manny determines this is his enemy Keldor in some kind of disguise, because ripping off the flesh from one's face is the oldest trick in the book, and plans to claim the large bounty placed on his skinless head. Evil-Lyn figures his coconut got rattled in the crash, but Skeletor plays along, suggesting he'd be more generous than King He-Man if Manny were to switch sides. The displaced warrior isn't going for it, giving a few more clues as to the reverse nature of his home reality, namely that Keldor is a heroic figure. But it was really all to get him distracted enough for Too Bad to grab him.
You sly dog! You got me monologuing!
Now that he's seen the vulnerability in talking too much, it makes me wonder if Skeletor will learn to avoid it in the future. Probably not. Thinking the incident with the portal could yield power from other worlds, Skelly was already headed back to Grayskull to gather pieces of his gateway for study when he saw an alive and solo man-at-arms heading the same way, and figured he deserved some study as well. With the idea that the coveted castle is the answer to all this, evil Manny breaks free and heads off, figuring his king will have the answers. And Skeletor just lets him go, hoping to let this play to his advantage. Meanwhile, Manny Faces is noting how surreal it felt being around someone that's actually completely different. Which isn't at all awkward for He-Man, who suggests they keep the existence of alternate Manny to themselves for now. They're met with some royal guard, who bring up Man-at-Arms' escape, and that he was spotted heading towards Castle Grayskull. Yeah, a watchtower saw him headed that way, so that's why we're looking for him. You know, nowhere near Grayskull. So the two masters make a U-turn to meet up with Teela, who's already at the castle with a few guardsmen. They're scanning for any kind of sign that her dad was recently here, and as the young captain nears the destroyed gateway, she flashes back to when she was a child, stuck under rubble with the battle mech closing in, while her pappy was trying to protect her but struggling with some orc-like warriors. She's called back to the present as the guards are being attacked by Man-at-Evil, who even strikes her when she tries to reason with him. After conquering so many foes in the service of his king, he won't be persuaded by what he perceives as lies and illusions. As his coloring suddenly brightens as he's about to fire on the redhead, he's stopped by He-Man, landing nearby and suggesting they head into the castle for the sorceress's help. Unfortunately on Evil-Turnia, she's been dead for years, and Manny thinks this is another elaborate ploy, that King He-Man's concerned that his commander will try to usurp the throne, trying to drive him mad and turn him into a mindless servant, with the help of Teela, whom he refers to as a harlot. When this is all over, Teela's going to need some therapy. Fortunately, Manny Faces has a cousin known as Man-E Doctorates. After the doppelganger destroys his ride, He-Man finally tells him this isn't the world he thinks it is, and they're just trying to get things back the way they were. Of course, that doesn't really change his mind, and he prepares to fire on the barbarian when his weapon is broken off by Teela's staff, who's finally determined this isn't her dad. They fight, and she holds her own pretty well, until he takes her weapon, then berates her before she's struck by an off-panel energy blast.
Oh, come on! I was right in the middle of a cutting insult! Does no one respect evil fighting etiquette around here?
Skeletor and his forces have arrived, with Manny all confused by such action by Eternia's hero. Boneface actually does a good job selling himself, how he abhors violence, but they should ally with one another. Claims that Keldor wanted to destroy the castle's power? Skelly improvs that was a lie by King He-Man, and Man-at-Arms should take Grayskull for himself, become the ruler that Eternia deserves.
Think of the respect you'd command, the power you would wield, the ability to have ice cream for breakfast with no one to stop you.
Our blonde barbarian says Skeletor can't be trusted, but as far as Manny McEvilstash is concerned, this is either an illusion, so what he does won't matter, or it's real and he'll finally get what he feels he deserves. So, in lieu of the easy way, Muscles intends to fight to protect Grayskull and its fabulous secrets. And if Man-Face's head is changing, I don't know why they put that sound effect between his legs. It's like a visual version of
Phrasing.
Though looking closer, it looks like his hand is converting into a weapon, which I didn't know he could do, so I guess that's where it's coming from, but still, poor placement. The issue ends with Skeletor summoning a fleet of attack planes and winged skeleton warriors. And this pinup, I guess showing Trapjaw was left behind at Snake Mountain and is trying to catch up with the others. That's what happens when you're too busy texting to pay attention at staff meetings. The final issue's cover is more story appropriate than those before it. An image of Man-at-Arms shattering like glass. Not sure how many years bad luck it is when you break a Master of the Universe. We pick up with our heroes, now on hover platforms, taking out the pterodactyls, which are large in number, but piloted by less than intelligent skeleton minions. And the art does a good job showing him smash, jump, and slice his way through the armada like a platform video game. Faces, not to be left out, commandeers an enemy craft and fires at Skeletor's ground troops, making references in his sudden narration to having been an actor, because I guess that was a thing. Though his flight is short-lived after Clawful damages the plane, causing him to crash.
Man, things haven't been the same since deregulation.
But fortunately, Eternian backup arrives. We've got a DoorDash delivery for a, Skeletor? Evil Arms makes his way to the castle to get power from some orb that hasn't been given any context thus far, and He-Man begins a hover platform. So they start out tiny. I guess he's just got those in his pocket like a pack of mints. He zeroes in on his friend's double to prevent him from getting into the castle, but is blasted off his ride. Though I can't help but wonder why he's even concerned. It was mentioned before that the sorceress only lowers the drawbridge for a trusted individual. How does he expect to get inside? And even if he does, what about the magical security measures meant to confuse intruders, also mentioned a couple issues ago? He-Man just feels more concerned than he really should be, given what he knows about the defenses in place. Maybe he's anticipating this evil twin to be as resourceful as the Man-at-Arms he knows, but it still kind of feels weird. Skeletor taunts his foe, asking if he's tired from fighting for a peace that can't be maintained, struggling against using Grayskull's power to bring a new dawn for Eternia. He admits not knowing where He-Man came from, though did hear legends of his role as protector from long ago. Eventually he'll find his weakness and put an end to him, but Muscles would rather stop Man-at-Arms from breaching the castle.
Don't fret, He-Man. Man-at-Arms is in safe hands.
Oh no, Skeletor got him an insurance policy from Allstate! Evil Manny briefly ponders why the castle looks different, and that maybe this is another dimension, but then takes something from somewhere and reveals another more collapsible power sword, which he uses to command the bridge to open. Turns out in Evil Eternia, they give out power swords with 3 cereal box tops and $5.99 for shipping and handling. Even with this new development, it's not like He-Man knew he had his own sword, or that it would work in this world. I maintain that his earlier concerns didn't make sense contextually. When the door opens, he's shocked to find the sorceress standing in the way, but maybe too shocked for someone that was apparently cozying up to the idea of different dimensions moments ago. She tries to get him to stay out, let the wrongs be righted, but gets blasted by Evil-Lyn. Wing Lady isn't underestimating the witch again, and goes on the offensive while Evil Manny heads inside. He-Man tries to go after him, but Skeletor's twin swords say,
Fight scene, sucker!
Even so, Captain Peck suggests they work together to stop a potential threat and have a new beginning. Skelly thinks he doesn't know enough about the past or the truth, and after seeing Lyn taken out, he magically turns into dust and disappears.
All we are is dust in the wind. All we are is dust in the wind.
The castle leads Manny to the throne room, which is exactly where our heroes need him, but they have to act before he gets to the orb of power, so Sorceress turns into a bird and leads He-Man inside. Let's just hope he hasn't dropped any distracting bird seed along the way. They catch up to him and plead that he doesn't belong in this world and will only cause damage to it the longer he stays. He doesn't really care because he wants the power to make a world without his king in charge, get a reward for all his suffering. The sorceress, I guess magically knowing his story, says his pain is of his own making, conjures a gateway, and prepares to send him through. But he launches his go-go gadget taser hand, intent on killing her like Evil Tila apparently did on his world. He-Man intervenes, dodges some missiles with a mighty leap, and drops down with his sword, slicing it into his foe's machinery. He says that his mentor taught him about compassion, and that evil must never triumph.
Not while there is He-Man!
As he throws him into the portal. Since this is Evil Manny, hearing a cheesy heroic speech was probably a fate worse than death for him. Right after being sent through, Eternia's proper Man-at-Arms is shot back out. Look, he even has that bandage on his arm from the first issue. No foolies. At first, he thinks he's dealing with an evil robotic He-Man, but quickly realizes he's back where he belongs as the sorceress regains consciousness. But no time for a warm, fuzzy conclusion just yet, as a mysterious voice makes an ominous threat that her fate isn't hers to decide anymore. Oh great, someone misdialed it and we got some Goa'uld warlord. It seems to be someone the sorceress recognizes, but rather than ask, He-Man throws his blade at the portal, only to be bounced back by a protective force field from, surprise, Skeletor! Good thing too, because otherwise the sword would have gone through the portal to who knows where. Say thank you to the psychotic wizardly despot He-Man. You say thank you right now. Apparently the defenses within the castle weren't much of a challenge for him, and now with the secrets of Grayskull within his grasp, he tells his nemesis to back off or die with his friends. The voice commends Skeletor for helping him escape the void, and Bonesy seems surprised, also knowing the voice. I guess that made him drop his shield, because our hero leaps over and cuts the portal, leaving the entity trapped. Manny Faces arrives with some guards, having chased off Skeletor's minions after an exciting battle I guess no one wanted to see, so Calcium Face teleports away with the broken gateway, apparently having found a way to harness the elixir of Schneidor. Bird Lady says the voice from the portal was Hordak, the greatest evil force in Eternian history, banished to another dimension. She takes off to tend to other matters, so bids the Masters farewell, while they head back to the palace so Man-at-Arms can chill, and maybe someday regale everyone with stories of spending the day or two in a world with a heroic, non-disfigured Skeletor and an evil He-Man. The comic ends with Hordak and his thrall, disappointed that another escape attempt had failed, but certain they'll eventually be free, perhaps by testing the loyalties of someone on the other side. That was Masters of the Universe Volume 2, and while it lingered here and there, it was still pretty entertaining. Not unlike the second season of the Cartoon Network's revival, it seems to have gotten a bit more of an edge compared to the Shard of Darkness arc. There's a bit more blood, an enhanced sense of danger from legitimately threatening villains, and a lead antagonist that certainly earns the intimidation factor. Some people die, though they're all no-names, and the worst more recurring or main characters get is Mechaneck getting slashed and sitting out the rest of the adventure, though it's more than we see of a few others from added pin-ups or cover art. Not that the story had to cram in every hero like Roboto or Mossman or Buzz-Off, but it would have made some sense to have a few of them at least show up for the battle at the end instead of the Royal Guard, especially considering how many of those guys died in the beginning. But hey, it addressed my criticism from the previous arc, and we got to see more of the Masters, who actually got to do stuff. The narration boxes seemed used as internal monologue, which is not uncommon in comics, but they're used so sparingly it kind of felt off. Captions like this kind of give the vibe like the character's telling something to someone else, either as a journal entry, telling it to another person, or to the reader, whereas the thoughts would be telling themselves. Not that this is a rule, just an observation, and would certainly have exceptions. The overall idea was really interesting, swapping Man-at-Arms for an evil one, teasing the idea of a dark version of their world. I can't help but feel it would have been more interesting to see some of that. Sure, it could have potentially been an entire arc on its own, but maybe some cuts here and there throughout could have had a whole issue set there and Duncan's trials to survive. There were instances where it seemed to spend too much time and page space on scenes that, while visually striking or very good, could have been shortened or given some dialogue to help with the pacing, though that could have potentially sacrificed some of the details they put into the backgrounds and surroundings, but hey, that's the nature of the beast. The art is really good, But as I mentioned before, some emotions felt restricted or restrained for whatever reason, as with Tila and this one shot of He-Man as the sorceress realizes who's talking through the portal. Dude looks seriously dumbfounded. Some moments, like Adam trying to console Tila, felt good for the characters as people, but some would argue it didn't move the plot or lead to any kind of subplot. Stuff like Adam feeling forlorn because people want He-Man instead of him don't really go anywhere, nor does Tila's lament of her current life of warfare and struggle. Though the more I think about it, perhaps she's the one Hordak plans to test to gain his freedom. But even if that's not the case, this was the second miniseries from Image, and it led to a, albeit short-lived, ongoing. So maybe some of this stuff I've mentioned gets delved into there. And while I wasn't bored with it at all, I do kind of feel like this could have been 4 or 5 issues instead of 6 if we weren't going to get any Evil Eternia stuff. Though it's possible that some of what feels like padding was to fill out 5.5 pages of full-on story. It's some nice nostalgic fun with enough of an edge to grow up the characters in their world, but not completely without the expense of the silly charm that's endeared it to its audience in the first place. I'm the Angry Spork, and man have I got issues.